All right, there we go. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another edition. Or I don't even know if it's really an edition of anything, but basically, welcome back to my channel with a Google On Air Hangout here. Just a couple of questions that came up today, but first and foremost, I want to introduce the co-host today, our co-partner in crime of what we're going to be talking about. My man Tino here, everybody. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey. So, cutting straight to the chase, and before I forget, though, this is my first time doing a Google Hangout on the air via my YouTube channel. So, if you guys are watching the channel or whatever, please, and you have some time, feel free to chat in the side. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'll be keeping an eye out for questions. And basically the plan was today we're going to talk about some issues that came up. Tino and I were Facebook friends and such, and there was an issue that came up, and we're going to talk about that. Then after that, if we have some time, we will get into the Ask Akasan, since it's not technically the Monday for doing Ask Akasan, but I'm still on the holiday, so I got a little bit of time to handle some of those questions. So that's the deal. Sounds good to you, Tino?
Oh yeah, let's do it, man.
All right. So first and foremost, what we were talking about was I guess so. Maybe about 8 hours ago, a little longer than that. There's a YouTuber by the name of Ryan Boundless. Everybody knows Ryan Boundless. In terms, if you've been watching vlogging, Japanese video logging, for quite some time, you're familiar with him. He's been in Japan for I think 15. I want to say maybe 20 years or so. Sometime. He's what a lot of people call a dinosaur, or whatever that may mean. But he's been here for quite a while, and he gets lots of questions. And this particular link or question he was answering was someone asking about teaching English just on the side of Japan, basically teaching English as a side job or whatever. And compared to his last video, or so, in regards to this topic where he just went off about the negatives about teaching Japan, he actually answers this one very positive, and I appreciated what he was doing with this video. But we're not really talking about what was actually on Ryan's video, but more or less just kind of the reactions I was getting on my Facebook page, and my Facebook page is, or my Facebook is a private page, so please don't try to add just in case. But it's just sometimes I like to gauge some of the reactions from just my friends that live in Los Angeles or live around the world, and I always like to kind of get open opinions. Like I have Christians on my page. I have atheists on my page. I have on my Facebook. I just like to have a very open world of friends. So what happened was one of my friends, who will remain nameless, he was basically kind of said that he hated the whole idea of English teaching, and I wanted to talk to him more about that. And basically what he was saying, I'll go ahead and read some of it, was I know it sucks in order to find other work in terms of a foreigner, because one of the arguments was the fact that foreigners, the only thing that they can really do in Japan is teach English. And whereas yes and no, but I digress. Moving on, he said, I know it sucks to find other work, but it's pretty much advocating, hey, do you have zero qualifications in teaching but come from an English-speaking country? Great! You too can take someone else's education in your hands and con them out of cash by treating their education like a side job.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to say, it's bad enough how many people I know who teach full-time yet have terrible spelling, grammar, and speech skills, but looking at side jobs for some extra cash seems even more low. And I kind of agreed with him on that point. And then I'm going to go further on to what we're really going to get into. He said, my biggest concern is actually for the students. I understand that Japan makes it painstakingly difficult for foreigners to find other sorts of work, a combination of why do we need foreigners when our country is 98% Japanese, a legitimate claim mixed with general xenophobia. But I find that far too many people treat English teaching, even at the time, as just a side job. Something to stay in the country and something that can float them by with cash so they can party on the weekend. If that's their prerogative, so be it. But ultimately, it falls on the students. These students are shelling out to up to about 3,000 yen an hour for self-improvement, and their teachers just looking at it as extra pocket cash for next weekend's izakaya trip. It doesn't really sit well with me. So that's basically what he was saying in a nutshell, that most foreigners come out here. In his opinion, most foreigners come out here and they get these jobs, English teaching jobs, because that's the only thing they can really get, and maybe in some cases the easiest type of job that they can get. But they come out here and they treat it not as really a profession, and they treat it as a side job, and in the end the person that ends up hurting the most is the student that's paying for it. So that's what kind of struck you the most, Tino, and you want to kind of get into that today.
Well, you know what? He's not lying. It's true. It is. And that's why I personally do not feel bad when I take students from other teachers. You see what I'm saying? In my mind, I'm thinking that I'm liberating these students. I'm giving them something better, because that's all that person. You know what? He is so on point right there, because I know so many so-called teachers who do this on the side, who only look at it to, just a way to supplement their income.
Right.
They get a regular paycheck, but just something to do on the side. They'll open a coffee shop lesson, a private lesson with a girl who wants to learn English, or a guy, a businessman who wants to learn English after work or something like that. And they just sit there and they listen, or they speak with them in English, and that's it. But they're not really teaching, you see.
Right.
And they're just providing them with an outlet to just have a conversation in English. That's it,
Yeah, it's crazy, because I was this. I can't mention any names or something, but you're exactly right about, like, there's this one dude that he used to own a restaurant, and he used to just totally like tear apart English teaching, the entire concept of it and how much they make money. And then he used to say that his option of just coming to his cafe and sitting down and having a conversation was better. And for some points I understand what he was kind of getting into, but at the same time, he was. I saw this woman show up, and she had her book ready, her English dictionary ready, but he had his own job, his main job, to handle customers, serving things, all that, and it was just this weird way of, like, he would kind of in and out, like when he wasn't flipping a burger or whatever, he would sit down with a cigarette in his hand, trying to have this like chat with this woman, and I felt bad for the woman, actually. I knew he wasn't charging much. I think he was actually doing it for free, but I also felt that the entire setup was wrong, like that.
Yeah, but it's sad, but that's the reality of it.
Right.
And I live in a smaller town than you or some of the other teachers that we know who live in Osaka, or I think Ryan lives in Osaka, right?
Yes, he does.
In the Kansai area or in Tokyo, they have, I think, more access to people who are more interested in learning English. But I'm in the heart of Kyushu, and it's It's not as easy as it would be for foreigners to find students in the bigger cities than it is, but it's like when I was reading your feed and I was reading these people talking about how they, teaching English on the side and what have you. It's like, you know what? A lot of these people who are commenting are spot on.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to be dedicated to. I never, yeah, as you already know, I don't consider myself to be an English teacher. I don't call myself. That's not my title. I'm not an English teacher because I think that I'm more than that. You
Right.
know, I've told you this before, but I'm a father who teaches English. I am a brother. I'm a coach. I'm a leader. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm whatever you need me to be, but I can teach English. You see.
Right. Right.
And I did come over and I did do the same thing that you're doing right now. I did the Eikaiwa thing. I did the jet thing. I was here as an ALT for the first year, which was 24 years ago. By the way, when I came out, and I only came out here to learn the language. I wasn't interested in teaching English. Or, as a matter of fact, I wasn't even teaching English. I was an assistant. All I did was read from the textbook. That was it. I had no control of the classes. I just assisted the Japanese English teacher, and I didn't even consider myself to be nothing more than just an assistant. That's it. But I started teaching part time at an Eikaiwa school in the city, and I absolutely loved it. You know, and it's something that I wanted to do more of. So I moved from Kagoshima to Kumamoto, and I went strictly into Eikaiwa, and I did that for 14 years. I was with one of the bigger Eikaiwa schools here in Japan, and I learned a lot, and it was something that I felt that I was really, really good at, and I really, really wanted to pursue this as a career. I wanted to do this
Right.
here.
Right.
But that was 24 years, and I'm still here.
And well, and the thing I'll note about that is because a lot of, especially what happened on my feed, this is coming from a lot of. I know these people personally, and I know where they're coming from because both of these cats live in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So, and I went to school with them. So I know exactly what they're talking about because I see a lot of these dudes come out here, even with students, when we were all students, then they try to be an English teacher. They think it's cool. They think it's actually a cool idea, but it's not. I'm not going to say the system is corrupt out there, but the system is very different than what you might have experienced, especially uh, as early as you were into that world.
Yeah.
A lot has changed. Actually, it was about 5 or 7 years ago when all the English, like the ALT programs like JET, Nova, all of those were like crashing basically. And all these like foreigners were running out of work because all the contracts were expiring. And what happened was those contracts ended up changing into this weird sort of world. Like for example, I don't. Okay, but there's a company out there in Tokyo that actually pays the most, but they don't really pay that much. They're still the most, but they pay. They don't pay a lot considering how much you and I would make out here just doing eikaiwa, or you yourself doing your own thing. But the thing I was going to mention is the fact that it's so hard, and I understand where some of these cats are coming from because it's so hard to actually be a good teacher and to be interested in it when you're not really trained to be a teacher. You're trained more or less just to speak English and try to kind of teach them by the book via the way the company wants you, but you're more or less just being a foreign face that someone can sit next to you in 60 minutes or so, and you can't really get direct feedback. That's actually against the company policy. If the student likes you, they comment everything to the Japanese staff in a separate room or whatever, and then you get feedback later, but you can never actually have a direct one-on-one relationship like you should. So I get where a lot of people get kind of disgruntled about that, because they really, especially in Tokyo, if you're not really interested in working with kids, then if you're not really going to be at an eikaiwa, you're just going to do these like man-to-man coffee table conversations, but they're so controlled by the company that you really don't feel like you actually have any control in the lesson. You're just going to be like, okay, well, today I'm supposed to read this book and I'm supposed to teach you this, and then you may not ever see that person ever again. So I see where especially with Ryan Boundless, when he went off on the bad points about teaching English, I see where he is coming from, because I know people that went through that. I almost got hired by one of those companies before I left Tokyo. But the main point I want to say is the fact that this is what a lot of people that have gone through that experience, this is what they believe teaching English is in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear stories like these, when Ryan goes off, or like even Tokyo Sound said the same thing similar to that, when I hear stories like that, I always want to tell them about you, myself, and reveal more information that I have online about the experiences, especially with working with kids. I think that's a big difference as well.
And you know what? That's why I think that exposure is the key, man. We need to get out there. There need to be positive educators out there who are doing it right, mind you, because the viewer, what they do is they'll see Tokyo Sam, they'll see Boundless, and they'll see Akasan, they'll see Tino, and the thing is, they get to choose. You see, they get to make up their own minds about who they think is legitimate and who's bullshit.
Right.
You see, it falls all on the viewer, because they will be exposed to all kinds of people who are out here doing this thing, but they ultimately have to make the decision who they're going to trust, who they're going to believe, and who they're just going to just brush off. And that's why I think that we need to expose ourselves more,
right?
Especially about this life in Japan that we're doing,
Right.
And because you'll find a lot of people out there who are saying Japan is this, Japan is that, and they're saying it in a way that it makes it seem so. It makes it seem so. They don't end their sentences with, "Well, that's what I think."
That's a
in my opinion, they're saying everything is fact. That's the way they present it.
Absolutely.
And, you get
that goes in general in life, though. To be in life,
definitely.
Everything, like, oh, Man of Steel, the movie sucked, but nobody ever says in my opinion or whatever.
Yes, exactly. But so it becomes fact.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not even like that, because I think for every 10 knuckleheads out there who say something negative about this life that we're leading out here, you'll find a couple who are legitimately doing it correctly.
Right.
They're doing it right. They're doing it the right way. And we can sit here and talk about educating the Japanese people and how to learn English and this and that. We can talk for hours about it, but ultimately, the people who are now watching this video, they basically have to make up their own mind. They can go to your channel, look at your videos, look at what you do in the classroom with those kids. Come over to my channel, look what I'm doing, look what I'm doing with these kids, and make up their own mind. You'll have people. They're gonna be other vloggers out there who are gonna scream bullshit. It's bullshit. There were monkeys out there and things like that, right? But no. It's not even.
But
it's not even.
And also, because it's all opinion related and things like that, I think something you and I both agree upon is when people are watching these videos of people complaining about teaching English, you got to realize that some of these people shouldn't have been teachers to be, quote unquote, teachers to begin with. Some of them should have never actually signed up for the job to begin with, because they never were really that interested in being educators. And that's what it goes back to. The original comment was like, when coming to Japan, it does seem like the easiest job is just to come here, sit down, speak your native language, and get paid more money than you would washing dishes or what minimal other jobs are available unless you're doing something specific to cater to a craft. But a lot of people that come to Japan don't actually have a skill set that they can use. Especially if they can't speak Japanese. So yeah, by default, everybody ends up becoming an English teacher. But a lot of them shouldn't actually be English teachers. And this goes back to he only because he's the freshest kind of complaint in my mind. It was Ryan was like you mentioned the dancing monkey and things like that. But you know, if you're going to be working with kids, you can't. You have to expect to do that, have that sort of habit. What did Gimme a Flake Man say? You got to be in touch with your inner child and things like that, because kids don't want you to be like balls to the wall or a hard ass or whatever. You got to be happy and things like that. So
I look at it this way, though.
Yeah.
I wish, I look at myself and I say, I wish I had a teacher like that when I was a kid.
Right.
I wish I had someone like that when I was a kid. That's how I approach everything, because I want to give them what I wanted when I was their age.
Right.
And so if dancing around like a monkey, is that what it takes? So be it. I'll do it.
Right.
I'll do it in a minute. I've done it many a times. But.
I like it. No, I think a lot of it also comes down to with is the fact that, for example, the general point of your channel and what you do is you're a family man. That's if I were to give a brief outline of exactly what your channel represents. You're a family man living in Japan, not exactly not trying to be Japanese. You're just a family man living in Japan that happens to live in Japan, and that's fine. What happens though is, like, a lot of viewers that get the bad information about teaching Japan, they're kind of looking for more maybe their same sort of demographics, so to speak. And so that's why they only see like the bad side of things, because they're probably around very young people that, like I said, shouldn't have been teachers to begin with. Yeah. And you and I both don't do as many JFACs or like living in Japan type questionnaires as maybe these other people do. So it's very interesting the way that works. But specifically though, the fact that you and I both live on the Kyushu side of things, so we both have, I think, a more pleasant experience in teaching English because it's not as controlled by a big company as well. So.
But you know what? It's like this though. I mean, it comes right back down to what I was saying before though. You'll have people who are in the States or in other countries who are very interested in Japan. I could sit down and do a JFAC video, but that, again, it's my opinion. Those
Right.
are experiences they can be different from what you experienced up until now, and also the age difference plays a factor as well, and but with me, it's like, I could sit here and tell you things like that, but you know what? Just come over to my channel and just see for yourself. I don't have to sit down and tell you. I can show you.
Absolutely.
I can show you what's going on. I can show you what's happening. I can show you what kind of life that I have in Japan. I don't have to tell you about this. Just come and look. Just come to look for yourself. Just look for yourself,
Exactly.
And I don't know if I don't see the reason or the purpose for people just going on and just bad mouthing something that actually some people out there are legitimately doing it well,
I agree, and a lot of that just comes from resentment. I think they're mad. They're mad at living in Japan. They're mad that things aren't working out the way they wanted it to.
But they don't go back.
What was that?
But they don't go back. That's what trips me up.
Exactly.
They talk about life out here, but they don't go back to their countries,
Yeah, God.
Yeah,
But
you know,
yeah,
why
no,
are
a
talking?
lot.
Why are you here? Get your ass back. Why are you still here? You
A
know?
lot of that, but it's interesting because I was also watching a video today about like sometimes it's kind of my curiosity. Like I ran into it. It was a fairly attractive woman, and she was doing one of these videos about why I left Japan and things like that. And what I've noticed is that it always happens around the first year or so. When the honeymoon period is over and you start to see the reality of what it's like to work in Japan. It's not all anime and flying cars or whatever. It's actually some really stressful stuff, especially in Tokyo. So I get that point. But there's all forms of teaching English out here, and I think if there was anything I could say as terms of a lasting sort of impression, uh, it's just the fact that I would avoid. Well, sometimes you can't do it, but I would work under the chains for quite some time and see if that's what you want to do. But when you actually start working for the smaller mom and pop type of uh, uh, companies, that's where you start to really see a better impact, and you can start to really see you have an effect on children. Older people, one-on-one private lessons generally is the best way to do it. And I know a lot of, especially in Tokyo, a lot of people don't want to work with kids, and I understand why. But I think I have gotten the most benefit out of teaching kids. I actually prefer now to this day, like I prefer teaching children just because it's easier and I get more enjoyment, and I get a quicker return in terms of like seeing kids actually being happy and learning and them using English opposed to adults where it's very fickle and they could be here today and gone next week or so, because they have their own life to live, and they have their own adult responsibilities. Children are just getting your customers technically to teach the parent, and as long as the kids are happy, the parents are happy. So I think that would be the lasting thing I could give someone advice for when they start to hear like the bad things about English teaching. Is just you got, like you said, you got to come over and see for yourself. Take a look at your channel. Sometimes I talk about it on my channel, but yeah, there's lots of cool things. There's lots of benefits if you actually want to be an educator. If you're just trying to get a check, then you know what? Stay in that shitty ass corporation job and collect that check and bitch about it later. But there's a lot more to actually enjoyment if you open your mind to more areas of teaching and such. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
well, I'd like to say something to your viewers who are
Okay.
interested in doing this teaching thing. Okay, first of all, do you realize that you have the power to change a child's life? Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Seriously, because it's like that's what it comes down to. You know what I'm talking about? You,
Only 10 yen a day, you can change the life. That's what
exactly. No, but seriously, you have the power to change the future of a child. And that's your student right there. Okay, you have to keep that in mind when you're doing this job. Okay, and to be a foreigner, you can exploit your gaijiness and get paid for it. Absolutely. There are people who are modeling part time. There are people who are just just a billboard. I used to get invited to parties. You don't have to pay for anything. Everything is paid for. Just come. I'm like, well, okay. Go to parties. All I got to do is talk with the people there, and they're using me, okay, to walk around and talk with their clients or their friends or what have you in English, and I was basically just getting paid for that, so you can make money. But if you're going to do this thing privately, understand that you have the power, okay, to change a child's life. You know, they are going to either love English because of you or hate it because of you.
Right.
Okay, and anybody can get a student. You can pass flyers out at the bus station or the train station, and somebody's going to call you. You can get students, but the thing is, it's not getting the students that is a problem. Keeping the students is a challenge. If
Absolutely.
you can keep those students for a long period of time, create a relationship with them, help them become a better person. That's what this job is, you know. So if
Right.
you're down for that, you're willing to dedicate the time and energy, the blood, sweat, and tears that is required to do this job, go for it. Get out there and just do it. You know, you will be blessed. You will succeed if you grind, if you put in the work and do it. But if you're out here just to make some money on the side, hey, just keep your ass at home. Just don't even try it. Because you know what? There are dudes out there like me who will take your students. And I don't feel bad about it. I will go there and take your students because I am liberating them from you. And that's all I gotta say, bro. That's it.
Absolutely. Very good, very good. And the other thing I will add to this, and this is more for advancement of teaching, is it's not as simple as just getting that student, like you said. It's keeping them, but at the same time, nobody's going to hand out free training. No company, like, I think that's another thing, maybe the kind of shock that happens with a lot of foreigners when they start working for these companies is none of these companies are going to want to really train you, like really train you. They just want to give you enough, just enough, because they know for the most part, if you're just a foreign face, you gotta be really bad. You gotta be a really terrible English speaker or personality to not actually to end up losing a student for the most part, overall speaking, because students, like the person commenting earlier said, people will keep coming regardless. And people will show up because they don't know any better. They don't know they wouldn't. Sometimes it's their first time having been taught, and they don't really know what a good teacher is, and they have nothing to compare it to. But what I will say is that so companies know this for the most part, and so they don't really look into advancing your teaching career, your profession, or just your education, learning more lessons. So it really falls upon you as a person to actually continue going to workshops, continue spending that time, like, yo, it's Saturday, if you get a Saturday off, but it's usually on Sunday. It's Sunday, there's workshops that have to be gone to. Like I have spent maybe around 300, which is actually not that much, but I've spent almost around 300 something dollars on several different workshops, just these kind of certified workshops. But at the same time, I was actually learning things about how to teach little kids. And if it wasn't for these sort of classes, these workshops that I went to, I wouldn't be the type of educator I am today, and a very popular educator for children from 3 to 5 years old, because I was up there for like a 2-day type seminar, crawling around and throwing balls and playing these games to learn how to like really sharpen my mind to teach that kind of age range. So,
I just gave a lecture at one of those.
yeah, I know you were there. I'm sorry I missed it. I was in Tokyo, or yeah, I think it was in Tokyo.
Yeah, I think you're in Tokyo. Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you were talking about. But I never told you why I left Eikawa, did you? Did I?
No.
Yeah, I was with Eikawa for 14 years, and back then, way back then, we didn't have the strict rules that you guys have now, or some of these schools have now. They gave me a list of what they wanted this particular class to be able to do within a year years' time. Okay, this is what we want your kids to be able to do within a year's time. I was like, all right. They gave me textbooks, and they said, you know what, Tino, just go ahead and do your own thing. I was doing that for 14 years. I was doing that for 14 years, and then all of a sudden, there was a new shopping mall that came up, and it was near the train station, and there was this big Eikawa school. Can't drop a name, but it was no vacation. That's all.
No vacation. No vacation. All right.
So it's like they had a strict curriculum. They had like hundreds of dollars worth of material that they gave each student that the parents had to pay for at the beginning of the class, beginning of the year. And then all of a sudden, the school that I'm teaching for, they said, you know what? Wow, we got to get with the program and start implementing these rules and these guidelines, and these textbooks and things like that. That's what the parents want. They want these materials. They want the DVDs and the CDs. And I was like, and they said, Tino, you got to stop doing what you're doing. I said, what do you mean? There are students and there are parents out there saying that they want to join your class, but this is not your school. It's our school. I was like, oh, okay. So what are you trying to say? They said, well, you need to do what everybody else is doing. And I said, well, I can't do what everybody else is doing because I'm me.
That's not you. Yeah.
I don't do things the way they do it. I put rhythm. I put music to what I'm doing. This is what I do. And they said, well, no, you're gonna have to do it our way. Okay, well, I quit. That was it.
That's how you got to do it. Yeah.
And I just told everybody goodbye. I said I hate to leave, but I have to go. And there was this one parent, this mother, who did have my contact information. It was totally different. I think it was due to I don't remember, it was dance or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ghost in the room, bro.
Nobody look at my messy room. It's under construction. Okay, keep going.
But she ended up passing out my contact information to all of these students that I had. And when I opened my new school, I had 60 students that, boom, just came in. And I already knew all these kids.
Damn, that's real good. I need that. Yeah.
And they left that school that I was working for. And to this day, that school still thinks that I took all of their students when I left. I purposely distributed my contact information, made it available for people to contact me, and that's not what happened. And that's why the schools are so strict with individuals like yourself, because if you have that charisma, if you have that extra something that they are looking for, they are going to ask you if you are doing private lessons so they can get out of that school that they're in and go with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get it hit up all the time. Like even in the eikaiwas and such that I've worked in the past, it's the same deal. Like if you quit that company, you can't you can't contact the customers, and you basically can't be there. You can't work with them for like 2 years or so. This is specifically more for elementary schools because this happens a lot. Is a lot of them work for elementary schools, and then if you quit that eikaiwa or whoever has the contract, you can't work for that elementary school for 2 years.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Didn't they tell you not to tell your students that you're quitting before you quit?
Right. That as well.
Right.
That as well.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Because if they know that you're quitting, they're going to ask where you're going.
Exactly.
And they will follow you,
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot of restrictions on English teachers. So if you're going to do the private thing, make sure that you are ready to grind. Make sure that you have your A game and make sure that you are ready to go because it takes a lot of work, man. This is a 24/7 thing.
Absolutely.
24/7.
Yeah, I think we covered it. I guess now more people. The bulk of my audience is actually on the West Coast, so I know it's pretty early for them. So I see we started at 3. Now we got 7 viewers, and I dropped it on my Facebook. So I know more people are tuning in. good morning to everybody just waking up right now. So if you have any questions, feel free to chat. I think I did it right. Please ask a question in a group chat. I hope people can see it. I'll do some gibberish real quick. Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that was me. It just showed up. Okay. Let's move on to the next thing, which I thought was very struck somebody, and this is still revolving around Ryan Balance. For those of you that just tuned in right now, Tino and I, for the last 30 minutes or so, have been just talking about a response that I got on my private Facebook page to a video that Ryan Boundless made about teaching English on the side in Japan. And in short, it just was someone was just kind of disgruntled and upset about the negativeness and the fact that foreigners come out here and treat English as a side job, and really the people that suffer from it are the students. So we've just been kind of talking about the positive points about that and trying to inspire people that actually do want to really teach English to realize that a lot of these people that come out here and become teachers, quote unquote, shouldn't be teaching in the beginning. Shouldn't be teaching at all. But they, you can't help you can't help it that that's like basically the main only job that a lot of foreigners can do out here. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say real quick is this just happened a couple weeks ago when I was in Tokyo. I have a friend doing something, and he's looking to change up his job, and he wanted to actually get into teaching English because he loves kids and things like that. But all of his friends, like you said, just all of his friends that have been in Japan and have taught English, he was like, I've just heard so many horror stories about teaching English, and everybody that teaches English around me hates their job, and they just complain about their job. And I'm like, well, you didn't ask me. So yeah. I talked to him for just a little bit, and I told him basically what we did in a nutshell about, exactly like you have the power to change a child's life, et cetera, et cetera. And he was just like, wow, man, you totally opened me to a whole nother window of what's going on. But talked about that. The recap will be uploaded, if not already, on my channel. I don't know exactly how that works. But yeah, check that part out. Moving on to the next topic here, which I thought, this is the one that I thought was really good. With Ryan Boundless, he's been living here for quite some time in Japan, over a decade now, and maybe 2 decades, in fact. And what one of my friends mentioned was, blah, 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 it actually, the one thing that scares me, this is what my friend said, the one thing that scares me, and I know this sounds crazy, was his room. I always imagined myself living in a nice house, surrounded by nice things, with a loving family. I look at his room, and I see a huge man-child, and I am sadly reminded of myself.
Damn.
I want a certain degree of professionalism and status with my career, and I feel like the people we are watching in these YouTube videos, Ryan Boundless and this man, I guess who asked the question, are sort of like extensions of myself in the years to come. If I don't break this cycle here and find a new job, I most certainly do not want to be teaching English in this country for more than 10 years like these men. I'm not saying their lives are bad. They both seem somewhat happy, but at the same time, it is kind of concerning when you see 2 grown men finding some finding some sort of gratification from YouTube blogging. Again, these are all just personal concerns. That's what I wanted to air out. So, like you said, Tino, that's exactly the professionalism that needs to be said. Is that's just one person's opinion. It's not fact. But I think it's a very good.
My channel.
One more time. I think I cut you off. Yeah, subscribe to his channel. And that's why immediately after reading that, I actually dropped your channel in the thread, and I told him, like, yeah, there's a bunch of YouTube bloggers out there, but maybe you're only attached to the ones that are sometimes the most popular, get the most views, because they put up stuff that people generally his age want to see. Chasing skirts, going to such and such here, going, whatever, making controversial topics and such. But the thing I was going to say was I agree with them about the room thing. Like, me as a YouTuber, maybe less of a J vlogger, but more as a YouTuber, I look to other YouTubers, just not for inspiration, but just kind of see where things go with them, because I wonder if they're going to go the same way with me. But I also look to you, Tino, for inspiration, not necessarily inspiration, but just sometimes I'm very curious to see what life is like with you, because we're both from LA, and you're probably the closest thing I know of to kind of guiding what kind of future I could have in Japan. So I get exactly what this dude, where this dude is coming from, and I mean, in short, in a nutshell, all I can say is, like, it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to be in that one room, but you got to change a lot about yourself, because there are dudes. He's absolutely right. There are dudes out here that have been living here longer than you have, but have been in that same 1 hour room. They just happen to get married, so now that 1 hour room is a little bigger, but it still is, like, to the extent you're in a little box, and hate their life in Japan. So,
but you know what? My main motivation was family back home, dude. See, I was happy before I came here. I had a career, I had a job, I had a life. Okay, and so what motivated me was I could always hear in the back of my mind, why are you still there? What do you have there that is keeping you there? So that was my main motivation, man.
absolutely.
I have to have something to show for every day that I'm in country. Every day that I'm here, I have to have something to show for it. And I was here in the generation where there was no internet. There was no YouTube when I got here. So I'm not used to this thing. I've only been on this YouTube thing for a couple of years now. The internet, I mean, dude, you got to help people with stuff, So it's like I'm not really used to this stuff, because it's like it wasn't here when I got here. I didn't need it. Everything that I got for myself right now, I had to scrape and grind for myself from day one. I didn't have people to tell me. I didn't have people to guide me. I didn't have people to show me. Everything that I got is because I did it myself. I built everything that I have for myself, and I always keep in the back of my mind that question: why in the hell are you still here? Why haven't you come home yet? I always hear that. What do you have here to show for the 24 years that I've been here?
Right. You can't self. I think, to kind of add to that, it's just self-motivation is not just self-motivation, but goddamn self-esteem in general. And Scott Unrested, he did a video earlier today about, like, he answers these questions from people about if coming to, when one of these questions today was if coming to Japan will erase my problems or will get rid of my problems, and he was very nice about it. But if I were to answer that question, I would have said, fuck no. If anything, it makes it worse. It extends your personality disorders or whatever problems you might have. It actually makes it worse. Like, you don't come out here with a clean slate. Let's throw that myth out the way, because everything you are reflects upon you later. And if anything, because of the fact that you can't speak Japanese, you find a lot of time sometimes talking to yourself and trying to figure out more about yourself. And if you don't have the right kind of mind and the right kind of attitude for a challenge, then it's not going to work for you in Japan. And that basically comes down to what I'm talking about with this one room and being in that same room. If you still have that mentality of being in a one room and you don't desire, what's that old phrase? I don't use it so much, but I think your generation used it a lot more. Like the go for the brass ring, something
Yeah.
like. Okay, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have that desire to jump or climb for the brass ring, whatever, then it's not going to work out. You will always be in that small ass room, basically. And I, as much as I don't, as much as I don't like, or I didn't like being here in the countryside and moving to Kyushu when it first happened, I can see that the 2 or 3 years has done a number on me in terms of wisdom and such, and it's given me a better outlook into Japan life in general. Like for me, I consider the Kyushu world, the Inaka, the countryside, that's real Japan basically. Whereas Tokyo was just some, Tokyo's this, just like New York, it's just,
It's a
it's
place to visit.
it's no, I think you can live. I think you can live in Tokyo, but you got to also recognize that Tokyo is not doesn't represent what Japan really is, and the mindset of Japanese people. Like you said, though, during the holidays, a lot of these people in Tokyo, it's a ghost town in Tokyo during the holidays because everybody's actually going back to their hometown. They go home, so Tokyo is kind of the place for a career, and there's many opportunities, but.
It's that utopia for a lot of people down here in Inaka.
I would say what?
It's a utopia for a lot of people down in Inaka. You know,
I
that's where they want to go. That's where they ultimately want to go to Tokyo. That's what their dream is, to go to the big city, you know.
Right. And
Yeah.
just like, you and I both, big city, living in the big city, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, just like any big city, if you don't go there with a desire to become something more, to become something better, it's not going to work. So you have to, like, I guess that's the best advice I can give to my friend who kind of commented on that. If you don't want to be in that 1 hour room, then you got to find ways to make more money and find other ways to circumvent. You don't always have to teach English, but you can't just keep on playing video games your whole life. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to realize that the time you spent playing video games, you could have been mastering a different type of craft, or you could have been doing such and such like that. As long as you have like a healthy balance of it all, then that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm 49, dude. This year I'm gonna be 50. You know?
yeah,
And this is what I've been working for. What I have right now in my life, this is what I've always wanted, you know. And let me ask you a question while I got you here.
absolutely.
And this question goes for everybody who lives in Japan, okay, for an extended amount of years, okay. Now, do you think that you are a different person from when you first started living here, not visiting or going to school here? I mean, living here. Do you think you are the same person, or do you think you're different? Because
Yes.
Japan hasn't changed, bro. Japan
Right.
has not changed. You either change with it, okay, or you end up getting angry and just going back home. That's the way I see it.
Yes. Okay. Well,
You
yes
think
and
you're the
no.
same person?
Yes and no. Yes, I have changed, or I adjusted, I should say. And no, I'm still the same person I was when I first came out here. But see, my situation, I think, was a little bit different only because I first came here in 2003. So that's over 11 years ago. I first came out here in 2003, and granted, I was just visiting for like 2 weeks or so. I kept on coming back every 3 to 6 months. So before I actually moved to Japan for the long run, I had already been to Japan 16 times already. 16
Damn.
times. Yeah, 16 times in the last within 3 or 4 years. I already came here like 16 times. So and then, when I was in LA, my girlfriend at that time, for 6 years, she was Japanese, and well, she still is Japanese, but she is from Fukuoka, as well, which was hella funny now because I would have never imagined that I'd be living in this kind of more country area. But so I learned a lot even before I started living out here. So when I came to Tokyo, when I moved to Tokyo in 2010 for the long run, I didn't have the same like problems in the culture clash that other people go through. I don't know. I didn't have yeah, that problem. So, but I understand where people come from with that. But I will say that the main thing, when I moved here in 2006, and I was here for 3 months, I think that was probably the more or less where I got all that. And I lived in Yame, countryside area, in 2006, and um, I started to realize like uh, I didn't really see the change inside of me more until I started meeting people back from LA again. And this is when I realized last year when I went back home and I was hanging out with my family in Lancaster, and when I went around LA and just talking with different people, I just realized I was more patient with things and I wasn't as cynical about things anymore. And I'm a little more pessimistic by nature. Um, I'm a little more I'm pessimistic by nature, and I didn't realize that actually until I moved to Japan. Because I was just thinking about this today when I was in Los Angeles. I was with all my homies and everything. I thought I was optimistic, but it was only because I was the highest denominator or lowest denominator of the least cynical, basically. Like everybody was so angry about things and so negative about things, especially about being black in America. And I understood where they were coming from, living that world at that time. But I always tried to see the positive side of it. But it wasn't until I moved in Japan and I started to have these kind of problems, being a foreigner, being stared at all the time, and there's some other things that I started to realize that I'm actually pessimistic by nature, and if I would hang out with certain foreigners, I really got off on bitching about Japan life, and I didn't want to be that person because I'm not in love with Japan, but I don't think I should be bitching about the place I live most of my life, or a good amount of my life right now. So I realized that I'm pessimistic by nature, and I'm attracted to like misery loves company. So if I see other people complaining, then it's a lot harder for me to be positive here, surrounded by so many negative aspects if you allow that negativity to get to you. And it's very hard to find people like yourself who are just so positive about life, maybe because, again, by nature, I'm actually very moody and pessimistic. And I tell my coworkers this, and they never believe me. But in private, I'm actually not a very nice person. So, but anyways, to answer kind of again to just answer your question, yes, I have changed. My core is still the same. When I first moved to Japan, when I was about to move to Japan for the long run, I told all my homies in the industry and everything, I just told them, like, the biggest thing I'm afraid of is when I come back to America, finally, when I decide to come back and live my life again in Los Angeles, is that I'm going to be another person, because there have been so many people that I've met that have visited Japan, and when they came back, you couldn't even tell it was them anymore, and they changed themselves, the way just the way they are, and it really wasn't in a good way. It was really in a dickhead way. Like, they could speak Japanese, so when they were back in America, all they wanted to do was speak Japanese to Japanese girls or whatever, and it used to piss me the fuck off. Like, and I always promised myself that if I go back, if or when I go back to America, I don't want to lose the special part of me that makes me me. And so far, I think I've kept that promise. But at the same extent, doing that, I've kind of sometimes handicapped myself in growing more in Japan and quote unquote being more Japanese or whatever. So. I guess that's sorry. My answer's a little more complicated than you were hoping for. I'm
No,
sure.
no, it was a good answer. It was a good answer. But it's to basically tell you how I feel about that. It's I don't think that, especially for you young cats, man. It's like I think that you should be aware of the fact that the longer you're here, of course you're going to change, but it's going to be for the better or for the worse. You're
I
either
agree.
you're either going to love it here or you're going to hate it here. And for those of you who hate it here, why in the hell are you here? You know, take your ass home. But you probably can't because the job that is probably waiting for you is at Target. That's where you go. Or Mickey D's. Take your choice. Because the pickings are slim. But living in a foreign country in general, it's always going to change you. Your surroundings, everything around you, the people, the cultures, they're not going to change. They're always going to be the same. But the person who changes is yourself. You have to realize that, and you got to be open to change. And it makes it a lot better.
It makes a world of difference. A world of difference.
And understand that no matter how long you've been here, you cannot continue to repeat that 1 year that you first got, that same first year that you were here. You see, a lot of people do that. You know what I'm talking about. A lot of people repeat that same 1 year for 15, 16 years, and they don't grow. They end up staying here and still angry.
Yes, yes.
So make every year a different year.
Right.
Make
I think
you were here the previous year.
and to add to that, I mean, you know, you're not Obama,
Yeah.
and even if you were, I don't even think he has that power. You can't change the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
The world, you can't come out here and think you're that important that you're going to change the society that's foreign to you, basically. You got to work with it. And if you want to be a rebel with a rebel with a cause, I mean, yeah, you're going to be, especially in Japan, the place of slow growth and movement. You're going to have a hard time adjusting, swimming upstream and such. And yeah, no, that's a very good point because I think that's the frustration that runs with a lot of quote-unquote dinosaurs, foreigners that have been living here for a long time, is they just get so mad because things don't work out. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of those middle-aged fathers or people that are having middle-aged crises in their life because they feel like they missed this one important thing. They didn't get a chance to make this one thing happen, and they're so resentful about everything else because of that. So I don't know, like and the other thing I was going to suggest for those types of people, like I think it also helps to actually have some sort of self project, self hobby, self sort of like something that you can actually see growth that you did yourself, has nothing to do, because especially if you're making money for someone else. I mean, I know it's something you'll never have this problem because you own your own company. In some point in time, I will not have this problem either. Oh, I don't have the problem either, but I make money for someone else. That's what I do right now, but I'm fine with that at this moment in time. But the main point I was going to say is you just got to have some sort of hobby or growth or do something that makes you feel like you achieved something all on your own, so to speak, because as the years go by.
You need
Sorry.
something. You need something that can measure your life by.
Exactly. Exactly. You need something, a measurement of your life, because as the years go by, especially as an English teacher, as the years go by and the students get older and they graduate, and you can see that they learn something from you, but at the same time their life has been changing. Their life changes dramatically, but it's very hard to see that change within yourself. And so I know the frustration that comes from making money from someone else like that. So because it's the same deal. It's the same day. It's the same deal day in, day out. You wake up, you clock in, you teach these lessons. The students come in and out. Some quit, some join, whatever, and they graduate. And it's a very thankless job. In this type of eikaiwa setup and structure, it can be very thankless sometimes when these kids quit or whatever. And so yeah, you need some sort of measurement privately of yourself and your life. That's the other thing I would suggest. So
Right on.
yeah. Let's see if there was anything else here. Definitely learn a skill. That's what I would recommend as well. Save money. Save your money. Oh my God, that's another thing. Save money. Research that. Things like that. Okay, I think we got those main things out of the way. We could probably do a quick round of Ask Akasan with Tino guest starring today. Let me see if I can get a few questions submitted by the users. Some of them are things they just want me to react to, which that'll be another day. But give me a second, unless you have a question for me.
No, go ahead. Go into the comment section.
I'm looking for it right now. Let's see. I do these screen caps, and then it's like, but hold on, give me a second. I'll just blow up all the screenshots, and then there's one that was sent from somebody. Here we go. Here's an easy one. Let me get this one out the way real quick. This one came from Michaelia. I jacked up her name completely. Michaelia, and she says, "Can I ask why you call yourself Akasan? Is it because of the red in your hair?" And then nice video, by the way. Michaelia, sorry I jacked up your name, but yes, that's exactly right. What do you think, Tino? Is that why I call myself Akasan?
Akasan? Yeah, I thought it was hair.
Exactly. Real quick, shortened version of the story. In short, I used to have, my entire hair was actually red. It was like a fro, like I guess you could say Ronald McDonald or Sideshow Bob or something like that. It was all red. And so back in LA, we were all big WWE fans, and The Undertaker, when he would come out, they would call it Dead Man Walking. But it was just a joke between all my friends. We were like Red Man Walking. So I was actually known as, before I was Akasan, I was known as just Red Man. That was what they would call me. Me and the homies, we'd go out and be like, "Yo, Red Man," like that, and I'd be like, "Yo." And so when I went to Japan the first time in 2003, Isaac is very difficult to pronounce. A very difficult name for them to pronounce. Isaac. It always comes out like Isaac or Isaac or Isaac, and it's like whatever, right? So in short, they asked me if I had any nicknames, so I was just like Red Man, and I was like, "What's red?" And they were like, Aka, and basically I was like, "Oh, so you mean like Aka-san?" And they're like, "Oh, sugoi, adana desu." And so history was born about 11 years ago. So that's where it came from.
I thought it was because of the hair.
Yeah, in short it was, but then yeah, that was where it came from. There's another one I wanna to ask you about. We already did. By the way, what's the worst? I know the answer I'm already get, but this one I answered a week ago. But how about yourself? What's the worst thing about Japan for you? What's the worst thing about Japan?
The worst thing?
Yeah, what's the worst thing? I know you're a very positive person, and there aren't bad things for you. There are more or less challenges for you. But if you were to pick something like what the worst thing for you is living here in Japan, or just about Japan in general.
They don't have tapatio sauce out here. They don't have it. I don't like that. They got everything else, but they don't have tapatio sauce. I don't understand that. How can you not have tapatio sauce? That's just, and I have to bring bottles of it back every time I go home because I can't get it here.
Well, absolutely, but that also that's like saying in general that's like saying hot sauce, just hot sauce in general is actually hard to find out here. So
Louisiana hot sauce. That's also
exactly,
can't get
exactly.
it here. That's also. But yeah, to answer your question, man, the worst thing about the cost of living is extremely expensive. But I've gotten used to that too. Hmm.
Yeah, you just became more balling. That's all. So
The worst thing. Movies. They come out here so slow. It's it's I gotta wait until February to see American Sniper. I've been waiting for that forever. Uh,
that that was exactly
wait,
the answer I gave. So
the movie.
you already know. Like that was exactly the same answer I gave was the movies. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing. Other than that, I've basically overcome. So
It must also be. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're both from LA, and just America in general. We're a very movie-oriented
yeah,
country, and our conversations revolve around what movies we watch and what TV shows like a quote from a TV show. Everybody getting around and being like, "Hey, man, did you see that last episode of such and such?" And out here in Japan, people aren't really. They don't do that. They don't talk about TV shows with each other, so to
yeah.
speak. So
They do the Japanese dramas. Basically everybody watches the Japanese dramas, but I can't get into the Japanese dramas. But yeah,
but to the extent they don't talk about like the different theories and like about the
no,
characters and
uh,
like you and I, like if I watch Sons of Anarchy, which I don't, but if I did, we could be talking about that right now and it'd be completely normal, basically. Yeah.
but I do realize that it is a TV program. So I would not try to convince you that this stuff is real. You know,
uh,
Jax Teller, he does actually exist. It wouldn't be like that. It wouldn't be that kind of a conversation.
I got you. Okay, okay, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Here's one. Here's a good. This is probably this was the main one that I wanted you to jump in on because it's a little hard for me because I got a little discouraged about the whole learning Japanese thing. But here we go. This one comes from Toner Toki, and he said, "When did you start to learn, understand Nihongo or Japanese language?" So, um, I guess for me, I'll answer that one first because mine's a little shorter in terms of learning and understanding. And the short answer for me is I wouldn't exactly say that I have learned anywhere close to being fluent or even intermediate or anything. Like I can understand when kids are talking to each other and like daily conversation stuff, or when somebody needs to eat or go to the bathroom or poop themselves or whatever. And when I watch TV, I can understand little things, but sometimes I get lost when it's a subject matter I'm not familiar with, or they're talking about sports or whatever. But I got discouraged into learning Japanese a couple of years ago after the earthquake. Because I used to actually go to the language centers every day. When I was in college, I was learning Japanese, and that was probably the best time when my Japanese was at its best, reading, writing, all that stuff. But then after the earthquake, a lot of things happened, and like I said, I'm pessimistic by nature. So when everybody was down and depressed, I was at my worst and such. And so then when I moved to the Kyushu area, I felt like I don't know. I felt that it was really hard to pull myself back up and try to find language. I actually did go and I found like language, not a language center, but I found like, you know, these older people that would come and try to help teach you, and it just the time didn't work out for me, and whatever. And I never felt like those language centers work, or those type of volunteer places were really good for me, because I never felt like I came there just like some of these students we talk about. I came there with a Japanese book and like all this other stuff, and I wanted to really be taught, but that's not really what that place was for. That was more or less just chatting, so to speak, and it just didn't work the way I wanted to work. And basically, in short, I just got really discouraged, and as the years went by, sadly, I kind of realized that the kind of job that I have now and what I do online with YouTube and everything else, I just never really need. I don't feel a need to speak Japanese. And that's kind of the bad point about it, because the more I focus with that mentality, the worse it will get, so to speak, in terms of like if I ever want to change something up. And the only time I ever regret these types of decisions is when I ended up going to the emergency room, and it was very fucking hard to have a conversation while I was in pain. And you know, nobody out here in Kyushu speaks English that well, if anything, if any English. So this is where the problem that I have. That, and then when I meet a very attractive woman, and in my experience, the more attractive women that fall into my category are generally the ones that don't speak any Japanese, any English at all, and that frustrates me a little bit, because I feel like if I had studied up, I could have really come in and impressed the hell out of them with some fluent Nihongo. So those are the only two regrets I have about that, but it really hasn't been enough for me to change my lifestyle as it is right now. So sorry, Toner Toki, I know you think that I'm really cool and I speak all this Japanese, but I'm not really faking it, but I'm just kind of like coasting it. How about yourself, Tino? When did you actually? That's actually a pretty good question for you.
Where I could be understood. The
Yeah, or
first
just when you started to like, I guess people are always looking for the Bart Simpson moment. You know that episode when Bart went to France and then all of a sudden it like clicked. Doesn't happen in real life. Definitely doesn't happen in Japan. Just living here. That's a concept I want people to throw out the window right now. Just living in a place does not mean you're going to pick up the language. If that was the case, I've been here on and off here for like 11 years. I would have been so fluent by now. So yeah, but yeah, when did you start to just really like, when you were like, damn, I'm really getting this, I guess?
Well, you know what? First of all, before I answer that question, the one thing I love about YouTube is I can use it as a measuring device for my own progress, not only in life but also in Japanese. I speak better Japanese than any other foreigner that I've met out here who's been here even longer than I've been here. But like I said, I came out here to learn the language. That was the only reason I came out here, was to learn the language. So I was able to speak this language. I'm fluent, by the way. I can have a conversation regarding any topic in Japanese just as well as I can do it in English. But the time where I could just conversate with people, just basically get my feelings across without me getting frustrated, was probably about 18 months after.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh man, I was grinding every day, dude. I used to carry this little tape recorder with me, you know, and I used to just ask people. I just listen to people just having these conversations, and I'm familiar with their vocabulary because I'm looking in the dictionary at the same time, and I'm like, excuse me, could you repeat that once more, please? Just repeat it again. Man, I used to bug people all the time with my little recorder, right? And I take this home and I make my own textbooks. And I've watched Japanese dramas, man. and I videotape them, I rewind them, and I go back, and I'm just mimicking their pronunciation. I'm just watching, and you don't even have to understand Japanese to understand the Japanese dramas because they're so simple, and a lot of them are just very very similar to American dramas. They
That's true.
they basically just took the idea and made a Japanese version of it.
That's true.
So,
I feel the same way about the porn. Yeah.
you could have kept that to yourself, but
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But it's like
Makes sense.
yeah, where I could basically just have a conversation with people, talk to the women out here, 18 months in. But I have to say, man, I woke up one morning, and it felt like basically a switch just went on. When I woke up, I was like, damn, I can speak better today than I could yesterday. And it's like I have my own, like you said, I have my own business. I don't let my wife, all she does is count the money. That's it. Everything regarding my school, I do everything I have to go down to the town office and do, everything I do myself. So, and also, I was so hard up about learning this language, man. I took 3 years off from Eikaiwa and went into a software company, and I was a translator, interpreter for 3 years for a software company out here.
Wow.
From 9 to 5, I was there. After I finished work, 5 o'clock, I kick off, and then I go home and I taught my own private lessons in my house after that. But that helped me tremendously because I got out of the Eikaiwa world I took a break for 3 years, and I went and worked for that company. They wanted me to go to Malaysia. That's why I quit. They were opening up a factory in Malaysia, and they wanted me to go help with the startup, and they wanted me to stay there for a year. I was like, no, I came to Japan to learn Japanese. I'm not about going to Malaysia, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to quit you guys. So I quit that and went back to the Eikaiwa company that I was working for. But that 3 years I worked for that company, oh man, invaluable. The experience that I got here, oh dude, I learned all the ins and outs. I saw a totally different Japanese workforce than I was used to.
Right, like the Keigo and such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The meaningless meetings that you would attend and
the green tea.
People, they love meetings, man. We have meetings every day, but nothing came from them. I didn't even understand that. But like I said, that experience that I had in the Japanese company, working for a software company for 3 years, I mean, that was just invaluable, man. That experience, it upped my Japanese tremendously, opposed to not going into that world. So yeah, man, I came out here to learn this Japanese language, man. So yes, I've been out for 24 years, and I have the proof. You can say I can actually say that I've been here and I have something to show for it.
I like you for I guess the tips for the viewers and for Toner Toki that asked about it and such. I like that idea, the tape recorder. Nowadays you don't even need the tape recorder. You got the iPhone with the notepad.
Yeah, we didn't have that technology that you guys have now.
It's all here. It's all ready to. Ooh, hello.
Yeah.
It's all ready to. Your inspiration can be right on your phone. Damn, I need to start taking my own advice sometimes. But also, though, I like the idea of the TV thing as well. Watching the soap operas. In some cases, it helps with to have subtitles just so you can understand that meaning first or what have you not. But that is true. Especially when I went to Tokyo to go watch the Shingeki no Kyojin movie. I had to watch that all in Japanese, obviously, but I've seen it before. But it was actually pretty cool I had already watched the show twice, and to watch the movie, which was basically the abridged version of it, to already kind of know what's going on, but really to listen to the Japanese this time around, and you could actually pick up a few. I picked up a few new words out of that experience. So it's possible. It's very possible. Yeah. I will say that
I didn't come out here to make the money. I came out here to learn Japanese. That was my main motivator. So
I will say that a lot of I have noticed a slight improvement, or certain times I've noticed improvements. Every time I go to McDonald's, and like that's always been the gauntlet for me, is like how much of it can I order without touching the menu, instead of saying, oh, I want this one, I want that one. How much can I actually say in Japanese? And now I'm pretty damn good. I just go up there every morning. I'm just like, hey, 6番セットお持ち帰り。Hey, Amochikari. And they ask me all these questions. If I'm able to answer that at the konbini and all that stuff, like I figured that, a small win, So yeah. All right, cool. We got that one. Thank you, Toner Toki, for that question. I think that's about all I have on the. Oh, here's one. Akasan, can I ask you why you're in Japan if you rather live in LA? Ooh, that's a. I need to think about that one for a bit. Like, I'm a little burnt out on that one. Do Japanese women like pretty boys? Yeah, okay, we're gonna. I don't think either of us have the expertise on that one, but. All right, sounds good, dude. Yeah, anything else you wanted to speak on tonight?
that was it, man. That's a lot, dude. This was a week's worth.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the 13, 15 viewers that are tuning in right now. I don't know why people are chatting, which is a little weird. Maybe someone can tell me.
We don't have anything to ask. We basically answered a lot of questions, man.
We are the gurus of everything. There are no questions to be asked because we have answered them all, I guess. Mm-hmm. I suppose. All right, sounds good, man. Are you going back to work this week? Did you start today?
I started today, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't have to go to elementary school until Thursday, which is good because Roman, he starts on Thursday as well, so that's cool. So I can stay here with him.
Okay. I think I'm doing the elementary school deal next week, but that's only because I teach on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for the elementary school, public elementary school stuff. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, it's always different. That, and I will say that's a different experience all on its own. I should say for the viewers, like, please don't mix in English teaching, ALT, English teaching and ALT, alternative language teacher, is very completely different animals. Very similar, but
totally different.
Yeah, very different. So when you hear people talking about teaching middle school students and elementary, more or less you'll hear middle school students and high school students, that's a completely different element, which can be fun if you allow it to be, but I can understand why it's a lot more stressful. So try not to mix them all together. But a lot of teachers happen to do all of the whole smorgasbord of that education. So, yeah.
And don't rely on one person's individual opinion. Pick and choose. Go out there and watch a variety of different people because, like I said, every 10 negative, you're going to find at least 2 positives out there who are going to help you and give you a different aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just mentioned earlier, I think I mentioned it privately, but it was the video of this one woman, very beautiful woman from Australia, and she ended up going back to Japan, going back home to Australia after like about a year or so. And I realized one of the things she mentioned was one of the reasons she went back home was she felt like she couldn't communicate with anybody because she couldn't speak Japanese, and she noticed that Japanese people were very introverted or very quiet and shy, and she said that she went online and saw a video from I think it was that Canada Jean girl or whatever that basically said, don't come to Japan if you're one of these people, and it had something to do with being outgoing and active or whatever. And she was like, yeah, so I saw that video and I agreed that I'm that way, so I just thought it was time to go home. And I'm like, you took the opinion of one J vlogger, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, yeah, maybe they that's just their opinion. It's not fact, you know. So
Don't fall for the titles.
yeah,
Handles a lot of people. The Messiah of this, or the King of this, or the Guru of this. Don't fall for the titles. Make sure
yes.
that you watch videos and pick and choose. Pick and choose. You know,
I might look like I might look like Exodus and Pharaoh and such, but I am just one man, flesh and blood, like the rest of you.
Akasan.
All right, Tino, let's wrap it up, man. Thank you very much for being on my channel today. We're gonna have to get you up with technology and YouTube so you can host your chat. I'll send you a step-by-step way to do it.
That would help tremendously. Thank you.
All right, thank you, my brother.
Thank you as well, man.
All right, thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year, by the way.
Check out my channel.
I'll put the links in the description below.
Right on, brother. Okay, take care.
All right.